Does your company want to calculate its carbon footprint? Let me give you a short introduction and explain why specifically Scope 3 emissions are hard to calculate and how ClimateCamp can help. To calculate its footprint, most companies use the GHG protocol, or the greenhouse gas protocol, which is a standardized way of measuring emissions of a company. This protocol divides a carbon footprint into 3 different scopes. Scope 1 and 2 is fairly straightforward. Scope 1 focuses on stationary and mobile combustion, as well as fugitive and process emissions, and Scope 2 focuses on purchased electricity, heating, and all the energy you need to power your operations. Scope 1 and 2 is fairly straightforward because you're in control of all the data. You have bills from your electricity provider, you have some idea of what your processes emit, and you can easily calculate it yourself. Calculating Scope 3 emissions data is a lot harder because of the wide range of activities it covers, but also because you're not always in control of the data. Now, for most companies, Scope 3 accounts for more than 80% of their total emissions, so it is really important. Let's take a deeper look at all the different sources for Scope 3 emissions. Scope 3 is divided into 2 sections. All the emissions generated from activities before your operations, or upstream emissions, and all the emissions generated from activities that happen after your operations, or downstream emissions. Now, important categories for upstream emissions are purchased goods and services, capital goods, transportation of goods to your sites, as well as business travel, employee commute, and so on. When we take a look at downstream emissions, we see the important categories are processing of your goods, end-of-life treatment, the transportation of your goods to other sites, and so on. Emissions data from activities related to Scope 3 can start adding up quickly. If you only take a look at purchased goods and services, for example, for an average company, this can span over 100,000 or even millions of activities annually. To calculate these emissions, you assign emission factors or generic values for certain activities or goods to the activities your company has. This looks like X amount of kilograms CO2 equivalent for Y amount of steel produced or Z amount of grain harvested. Now, to calculate all this emission data, it takes quite some spreadsheet magic and hours of your time to actually come to a decent result. Calculating your Scope 3 emissions is something that a lot of companies struggle with. Supply chains are really complex, and to calculate your Scope 3 emissions, you need to apply dozens of different parameters and collect hundreds of thousands of data points, which makes it really difficult. At ClimateCamp, we help companies calculate their carbon footprint and engage with suppliers. We clarify where they can find certain data, we help you process this data into our platform, which then generates your emission totals for Scope 1, 2 and 3. This process also highlights the emission hotspots you have within your carbon footprint and allows you to direct your reduction efforts to the places where most value can be gained. And on top of that, we also help improve data accuracy by engaging your suppliers directly. If you want to learn more, please reach out via climatecamp.io, because we'd love to hear more about the challenges you are facing when calculating your carbon footprint.